On episode 64 of BRC and Friends, Amy Kim and I sit down with singer, musician, actor, coach, and hilarious human being, Brian Falduto. Brian is known for many things, but I was first introduced to him through his songs Same Old Country Love Song and God Loves Me Too. We had a blast with Brian learning about his life, career, and all the things on his website that I apparently missed. We definitely had a time, so be warned, prepared to laugh out loud with us, mostly at my expense. Thanks for being here. Grab a beverage, pull up a chair, and enjoy listening to our conversation with Brian Falduto. My name is Bruce Reyes-Chow, and this is BRC and Friends. Each episode, my co-host and I chat with activists, artists, academics, and adventurers to discuss politics, faith, pop culture, technology, and as you will discover, pretty much everything that pops into our heads. This is basically an excuse for us to hang out with friends and colleagues and riff about things that matter. Welcome to BRC and Friends. And welcome to BRC and Friends. I'm really excited today. I'm excited about every day. I get to not have a real job, but today on BRC and Friends, we welcome Brian Falduto, who is amazing. And I'm gonna fanboy a little bit because I'm one of those people that I hear something, I watch something, I see something, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to ask if they would be on the show. And so reached out to Brian after. I'll tell a little story about how I connected to you. And he said yes. And so here we are. So before we jump right in, I'm going to ask Amy Kim, co-host, to go ahead and introduce yourself, where you are, all the things, and then we'll ask Brian to introduce yourself. Go ahead, Amy Kim.
Yeah, I'm Amy Kim, Cremus Parks, currently residing in Asheville, North Carolina. I prefer she, her, or aya pronouns. I work at a Presbyterian church and am all things fun. That's what I think anyway. And if you don't think that, then we probably shouldn't hang out. So there we are. But I'm super excited to talk to Brian and the earworm that goes in my head and the vision of you as Shania Twain. So like all the things are making me so stinking happy right now.
Yes. Brian, if you could introduce yourself, give us kind of location and all those kind of things so folks get a sense of who you are.
Yeah, my name is Brian Falduto. I'm curious to hear this story about how you came to hear me, because I'm not really sure. You just reached out and were like, want to come chat? And I was like, sure. I had the day free, and I'm glad to be here. My pronouns are he, him, they, them. I am in New York, New York. It's been raining for we had a break from the rain yesterday for a day, but it's been raining pretty much nonstop for 6 days. But yeah, happy to be here. I did dress up as Shania Twain once in a music video. And so far, you know a lot about me, everybody.
There we go. Well, where did you grow up? Just curious.
I'm from New Jersey.
Oh, okay. Awesome. So East Coast. I am one of those that I would love to move to New York someday. And I hope it's not just because everybody wants to go to New York, but I actually feel like I would super vibe there. I've interviewed at churches in New York. And it's not good to interview for a church only because you want to move to a city. But I have certainly,
why not?
Love that.
So God, does God say so?
God. Well, okay. So the story is I was interviewing for a church in Cooperstown, which I know is not New York City. And my wife is like, are you interviewing at a church in Cooperstown? I'm like, but then I could go to the Hall of Fame on an interview. And she's like, I think that's not a good motivation to use their time.
Why?
Okay.
Your happiness is so contingent on your location. Sometimes, you know,
you're not helping my needs to go to.
I'm like
visit
all
places.
for it. Go where you want to go.
All right. So here's my story. Okay.
Brian's just being supportive. It's good.
Yes, that's good. That's what I need. That's why I have this podcast, is just to have people come on.
To justify your decisions. Good job.
Exactly. Here's all the other things I'd like to do that my wife has said no. We just got back from Australia, and I wanted to bring a kangaroo home, and Robin said no.
Well, that one I agree with Robin on.
Why does everybody agree with her on this? I think that
it's illegal for starters.
Right. Thank you. Good job, Brian. Also, Bruce, there's just a lot of things that Robin has saved you from at this point.
This is true. This
made sure that you are still here and alive in the world and are employable. So I just don't know that this should be the format for which you try to justify things to Robin.
The kangaroo. Everybody so far.
I don't know
Everybody
that
has sided with her. No, she doesn't listen to it anyway. She will listen to this one because, so here's why I invited you, Brian. So we are doing this road trip this summer. Robin has always wanted to do this family road trip. And we have 3 kids, all adults. One is graduated, one just graduated from college, one's in college. So trying to get everybody together is impossible. But for Mom, we're going to do this national parks road trip. And so we got in a car and drove 1,000,000 hours with the dogs, the whole thing. And 2 of my kids identify as queer. As we were doing music and everything, they popped on your song. And we listened to Same Old Country Love Song radio, which then expanded everything. And so I'm pretty sure at the end of my Spotify year, you or that song are going to end up in my highlights because so then I'm always the one I'm like, well, let's see what else this guy's done. And then got to God Loves Me Too. And then my kid's like, oh, God, Dad, of course you're going to look for the religious part. Pastor's kids are like, okay. And so that's how, and I was like, you know what? This is amazing in so many ways. And you use a song in God Loves Me Too, Here I Am, that is huge in the Presbyterians. And so I want to talk about that part. But that's why I was like, I'm just going to ask. Like, if you don't ask, you know. So tell us a little bit about your singing, songwriting, music thing, where that started, how that's going. And I want to talk about your coaching as well, because I don't know nothing about that, but I know that's something you do too. But tell us about the music. How did that all happen and all that?
The music, yeah. Well, so I started writing music about 7 or 8 years ago. I was working in country music radio for a while. That was my first job out of college. I had an internship that turned into a job, and it just kind of like happened. You know, those college internships are a bit random at times sometimes. So I was just randomly working for a radio station, and I fell in love with country music at the time. I was going through a big breakup, and I had also just come out of the closet like senior year of college. So I was like discovering myself while I worked at this country music radio station. So country music was really sort of a part of my life while I was discovering myself. And then I eventually tried to just write my own songs, just therapeutically. I wasn't going to share them with anyone, to just kind of like say truthful things for the first time in my life, because I had been closeted for a really long time and I had been really unhappy for a really long time. And I was just trying to like get to a more truthful, authentic version of who I am. And so songwriting is a great way to do that, because in a lyric you can say like things you wouldn't say normally to like your friends or whatever. So I put all these like emotions into songs, and then I played them for a friend eventually. And she was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Thank you so much for sharing this with me. I feel the same way sometimes. And like, it was just this like connective, validating experience that I sort of got hooked on. And now I've just been doing that for this whole time. And yeah, you did like a little bit of the cataloging. My first sort of foray into music was the God Loves Me Too song and music video, which was more just like a chapter, I think, for me musically. When that came out, everyone was like, are you a Christian artist? Do you identify as like Christian contemporary? And I was like, no, I'm more country. And I think my latest project is a little bit more the lane I want to be in. But God Loves Me Too just felt like this song that needed to be shared, because it's very much my story of being queer, and I grew up in the church. And so I wanted to put that out there for anyone who didn't get that message, because I got it very late in life. And the message of the song is essentially that you are loved, no matter if you're queer or if you're straight or whoever you are, God loves you. So I kind of rambled a little bit there, but I don't know.
No, that's great. So were you a musician before? You obviously were a musician before this. You didn't just be like, I'm going to start songwriting, and then you just start. But what was your background as a musician? Were you always like, were you like tons of bands and that kind of thing? Or were you like the one guy in the room just playing his guitar? I mean, what was your thing?
Well, I've been performing since I was 11. I don't know if you know this part about me, but I was in School of Rock when I was younger. The movie.
What?
You didn't read that? Brett, do your research, yo. I knew that. He has a nickname from Jack Black. Dude, what the hell? Okay, carry on. So sorry.
No, honestly, I love that, because so often I have to do these things because of School of Rock. So to know that my work outside of School of Rock has invited me onto this podcast is you know,
we love your grown-ass self. Good job.
Thank you so much. But yes, 11-year-old me was in a major motion picture, and I played a queer kid on screen, and I got really bullied for it when I was younger. And then I like was closeted for a really long time and dealt with a lot of internalized homophobia. This is like the short version of like everything I went through as a kid, having been in that movie. But I've been performing since the womb, essentially. Like I was in theater things all throughout middle school and high school. I was a theater major. So it wasn't always music per se, but it was within performing, and then it became music.
Okay, awesome. I can't believe I didn't know that, because I mean, really was just this.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
Great.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that someday I'm going to be a story for you. I was like, yeah, I was on the podcast, didn't even know, idiot, what else I was.
I love it. So far, this is my favorite podcast interview.
That's going to be the blurb, is going to be like my favorite podcast. And I'm not anything else. That's just going to be the review is my favorite podcast. Yeah.
Well, because usually it's like, let's talk about School of Rock, and then if we have time, we'll get to your music. So it's like, I love that.
What was Jack Black? I mean, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
But well, okay. So you got there and doing the music. So let me ask you about like what's been the reception of the Same Old Country Love Song. How have you put that out? I mean, what's been I just think it's a brilliant song, just in its lyrics and its vibe and its catch. I mean, all the things. But tell us about it, just doing that as a musician, songwriter, getting that out. And then what's been the feedback and kind of the response from folks?
Yeah. I mean, the feedback's been really, really warm, which has been really validating. I feel like as an independent artist, I have to do a lot of self-validation just to keep myself going, so to get all these people being like, we love this song, that's really helpful. And it's, I'm in country music. There's not a lot of queer artists in country music, so the song is just a commentary on that. Really, it's we say it in the song. It's a song you've heard 1,000 times, but it's gay. So that right in there is the trope, and we just decided to play that up a bit and really make it sound like a traditional 90s, 2000s country song, so that everyone would feel like familiar and homey with it. But at the same time, we're introducing a new element, which is the fact that I'm not a straight man. So it's like, it's really fun and it's playful. And we released it with a music video where I dress up as all my favorite country icons, Dolly Parton and Shania Twain and Carrie Underwood and Faith Hill. And I think this project is me like really just for the first time since I was 11, embracing my queerness and in a fun way that's unique to me because I like country music. And I feel like that's kind of what I've been chasing for 20 years now, is like sort of getting back to that more authentic version of myself. Because when I was younger, I was just me, unfiltered. And then the world sort of told me what I should and shouldn't be. And so now this project is me sort of being like, well, I'm just going to have fun again. So yeah, that's that.
Yeah, well, it comes across. You watch this video. So we listened to the song, and then obviously we're all like, okay, now we're going to lurk. Clearly, I didn't lurk enough to find out about your early stages. I am. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so but you listen to the song like a million times, like we did in our car, and then we watched the video, and it just made it even better. Mm-hmm. Like it was the video itself, I think, was just like, yeah, this just made the whole thing.
It's happy. It's happy. And I think also for genre that is so like wrought with like hyper masculinity, right? And that like the like what I had in my brain was like, holy crap, like maybe probably unintentionally, all these hyper masculine men have made now videos that queer folk are like, hey, I want to watch this. They're in their tight jeans, they're doing their thing, right? And like, and just that is part of it, right? And that there's a genre that may not have intended to speak to a certain audience, but clearly was, and resonating in a way that was really embodied, right? About like the beauty of a man's body and all the things. And they're like, why couldn't I sing the same song about that guy? Because he's hot.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. And yeah, like country music is a storytelling genre, and queer people have stories to tell. So I feel like they shouldn't be so like far from each other. And it's a lot's happening. There's a lot, I feel like within the past year alone, there's like a lot of queer country artists emerging. So it's like, it's an exciting time.
Is there, what has been the impact on, I mean, I like country music. I don't like know it, But you're starting to hear things that are obviously busting out in more mainstream about folks either taking public stances, dropping out of things. I mean, just really being more public about their support of LGBTQI people and other things. So what's the status of country music now? How would you describe it in terms of its acceptance and affirmation and celebration of gay artists, music that is, differently focused? I mean, how would you describe that at this point?
Yeah, I'd say that there's a lane of country music that's still very like mainstream and exclusive and sort of sometimes homophobic or racist or whatever it is. And I think but that's just one lane of country music now. And country music, I think, has become this umbrella term, and there's all these different lanes underneath it. And there's, there's like Brandi Carlile and Maren Morris and Kelsey Ballerini who are over here, like, not all of them identify as queer, but they're still doing like really like innovative things with their country music. And Casey Musgraves, I would put in that category too. And they're being really welcoming and accepting to the queer community. And then there are all these queer artists coming up as well. So I think because of streaming, the lane that used to be the only lane is no longer the only lane. There's so many different lanes. And that lane that's the only lane, they're playing the same kind of music all the time on the same radio stations. And the people who want to hear the same music all the time are listening to the same music all the time. And I think that everyone's doing just fine. But then there's this whole beautiful world of country music that's like exploding outside of that radio airplay.
Right. Well, and I love that whole idea of storytelling, because I had talked to a friend who is an immigrant, and I said, what is with like somebody was showing me for like the Asian American month that they went to a game and there was this Asian country artist. And I was like, what in the world is happening? Like, I'm just so confused. And they're in Nashville. And I was like, and they said, well, it totally makes sense because it's storytelling, and that many people, for English being their second language, that is the most consistent way to understand a language is through story. And so country music just ends up being a really strong followed genre for immigrants because they like to hear the story, and it's a great way to understand that. So I kind of love that intersection of storytelling and being able to do that in a way from probably a really vulnerable place, right, of life, but also really fun.
Yeah. I love that.
So let me shift to God Loves Me Too. Tell me, so that's another one I listened to, and then I watched the video and I wept because I mean, don't take that as too much of a compliment, Brian, because I cried everything basically. But that particular Amy Kim knows. That's a
compliment. Jesus, you are so ridiculous.
I cried everything. My kids are like looking at me like an insult. Okay, my kids are like, "Are you going to cry at this video?" I'm like, "Probably. Stop. I don't care." But it's beautiful, right? Because here's why I thought it was so amazing, is that you tell a story that clearly talks about the pain that the church has caused, right? But that's not what you're telling. Like, you're not saying just forget about all that stuff, but you're saying that there are other churches that aren't expressing this. You're missing out on this. It's real, but here's this thing that I've heard, and that part I think is just brilliant. That holding that tension between the church has been a shitty place and a violent, all these things, but here's the story I've heard, and I'm sorry you're not, and other churches are not. Can you talk about how that song came to you? What's the history of that and all that?
Yeah. First of all, I cry at everything too. And I was getting goosies even as you said that, which is funny because you were just describing my own song back to me. But I am really proud of it. And it is something, it kind of just came to me. It was, this never happens. It was the fastest song I've ever written. And it just sort of like came to me. I grew up in the church. I grew up Protestant with my family, but I also went to Catholic school. So I had like a double dose of Christianity. I feel like I was in mass every day of the week at some point. Like it was like, there was theology class, there was mass. It was just everywhere. But no, the queer element always felt like this just like ignored thing. It was like this rumored thing. Don't be gay. Don't talk about it. Just go to church. And so I felt like this whole part of me was something I had to keep secret and I couldn't bring into this space. And I just kind of lost religion in college a bit. I was just focused on academics and social life. And I wasn't going to church as often. And I still always loved worship music. Like I will still listen to worship music like all the time. It's really exciting for me. But yeah, and then a couple years ago, I would say like 5 years ago, I was in LA for a project. And I didn't know anyone in town. It was my first time in LA. So I had the weekends free and I didn't know anybody. And I was like, well, I haven't been to church in a long time. And I heard that there's all these LGBTQ inclusive churches now. Why don't I Google one and see what that's about? And then I like went to the Hollywood United Methodist Church. And there was this huge rainbow flag above the door. And I walked in and the pastor was a lesbian wearing a stole. And there was this gay couple holding hands, a couple rows ahead of me, and a couple pews ahead of me. And I was like, I just cried for an hour and a half. That was the service. I just cried from like the moment I walked into the church to the moment I left. And I didn't realize that I needed this nostalgic healing experience because I wasn't really like spending a lot of time thinking about my upbringing as a queer Christian or it was just, and then I went home and I wrote that song in 20 minutes. It was the fastest I've ever, it was almost like it just came out of me because of that hour and a half in that church. And then as soon as I wrote it down, I was like, well, this song needs to be shared with people who didn't have that experience I just had yet, who are still sitting in that church where they feel like it's not okay to be who they are. They need to hear this song because they need to know that there is a place where they are welcome. So yeah, that's pretty much the short story.
Well, and I don't know if it's beautiful, and I don't know if you know this, but part of what resonates for me is that the hymn that you reference in the song is one that is way overdone in the Presbyterian Church, I will just say, right?
Catholic too. I feel like we sing it every week.
But it also is one that is consistently used at ordinations as a way to confirm like their sense of call. So for me, there is this echo of you being called to proclaim this message, right? And how powerful that was for me in hearing that there was like a clear calling of you to share yourself, your own experience. And then now hearing this experience of you visiting that church, like it's even more so for me that is the case. I'm also wondering how your family has responded in the midst of all of this.
It's my mom's favorite song. She's obsessed with it. My mom catered the entire music video shoot because, you know, I'm an independent artist and I did that whole thing myself. She was there for 12 hours on set, just like cooking food for everybody. And they're very supportive. I think when I was younger, they were growing up they were parenting at the same time I was growing up. So I don't think they got a lot of affirmative, positive messaging that they could then give to me. They were just going to church like I was going to church. And I don't think, I did suffer a lot internally, but I don't think that's their fault. And as soon as I think I started telling my story, they've been very supportive.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, the song itself, I like you ease into Here I Am, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I think I know what's I'm like, no. And of course, I'm like geeking out, and the kids are again like, oh my God. But yeah, I was like, that's your, you know, do you all hear? I just remember sitting there. Do you remember? You know that hymn, right? And Amy knows my kids, and like, yes, we know that hymn. It's yes, Dad, we do. But I again watching the video and just kind of again the same experience. But that holding those things together, I think, has been it's amazing. And my guess is there's a bunch of play that's coming from Presbyterians because I've been sharing with everybody. It's been like, hey, take a listen to this. You gotta take a listen to all these things. So amazing, thank you. So tell me about your coaching. So you're doing music, and then I noticed on your website there's just coaching. I did not click in. So just again, I'm a terrible prep host apparently. But tell me about your coaching. What are you doing?
It's funny that you didn't click in. I was like imagining if you did click in, my website, the first thing is like, he was in School of Rock. No, just kidding. But it's not. You click in and it's there's a coaching page and there's a music page. Coaching. Yes. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you guys for the beautiful words on my song. That song means a lot to me, and it's not really where I live as an artist anymore, but to know that it's still having an impact on people is really like important to me. So thank you. The coaching, I think outside of music, I just care a lot about mental health. And I was in a really bad place with my mental health for a really long time. And then I discovered all these tools and approaches and strategies that have really helped me. And so I just spend a lot of time coaching people on that. I'm currently contracting with a company and getting my clients through there, but I do occasionally take private clients as well. Contracting has been a little easier because most of my focus is on the music these days. So I don't have to like hustle to get clients. It's nice. Yeah. But if people are interested in coaching, I can absolutely coach them. I feel like my story sort of speaks for itself as to why I'm a coach. You know, me growing up and being in this public spotlight as a queer youth and then hating myself for it for so many years, and then like sort of learning to love those very things about myself that I hated, and really doing the work to heal some of that shame and overcome some of those difficulties. And I think I just like helping people discover their authentic self in that way, which is what I do with my songwriting. So a lot of people think sometimes you're a coach, you're in music, you're in music, I'm confused. And I'm like, no, to me, they're very similar. Like music is how I tell my story, and coaching is how I help you discover your story and tell your story. So it's like, they feel like very two sides of the same coin. And it's just sort of my moment to help other people put it into words, if that makes sense.
Great. Thank you. Awesome. I mean, I love, I do a variety of things, that whole trying to combine all the things that make total sense in our heads when you have multiple things going on. But sometimes people are like, so you're doing this and this and this. I make totally makes sense for me. So we're
just happy you have two sides. Bruce has like a 8-sided coin. You're just trying to help him understand.
I'm like a Dungeons and Dragons dice, depending on the day.
But that's so in to have multiple sides. You know, it's like it's very generational.
It is. It's expansive. I mean, I think it is expansive, right? I think that's the part of our problem of growing up when we grew up, is that you had to be one thing. Like it was all one note. And if you really loved the thing that other people weren't liking, then you felt like you weren't worth it. And now you can say, like, I can be all of these things and you don't have to like any of them, or you can like 2 of them. Whatever, that's on you. But I can claim all of these pieces of me, which Bruce just tends to have more, which is lovely.
I'd have kangaroos, except for my wife wouldn't also.
With the kangaroos, yo.
If you ever get a chance to go to Australia, go to the super cheesy tourist thing where you get to have lunch with kangaroos, where they're just hanging out because there's like, yeah, what? Exactly. Yeah. See. So, and they're just hanging out, and you feed them by hand. And we look down and there's this baby Joey sticking its head out of the mama's pouch. I mean,
okay,
you'd want to bring one home too.
There's a difference between having lunch with them and then having them in your house with your sweet dog and your lack of land in California.
We have a pretty big yard. It might work. It might. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not getting a kangaroo at the end of the day.
Back to Brian.
No, I love the kangaroo talk. I did. I saw a kangaroo in real life once. It was very cute.
They're like, in Australia, they consider them kind of like pests. Like they're not as cute. Crazy. They're like, not quite like raccoons, but they're definitely not loved things out in the wild. But anyway, this is not the Australia podcast. But so what projects do you have going on now? What do you do? Should we expect something? Like, what are you working on that you can tell people, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, this past summer, life decided to throw me some curveballs. I actually had like a medical procedure I had to undergo, and there was like a fire in my apartment building. So this summer I was sort of like taking a step away from the artist thing just to focus on real life stuff for a moment. But I'm back at it. I'm in the studio. We are recording some new music, potentially doing a tour in the spring. Nothing's like official, but it's all like happening. So I will have like official news soon, hopefully. But if people want to keep up with it, they can follow me on Instagram.
Yes. We'll put all the links and all those kind of things, and I'll ask you more specific about that. So as we end up our time, we're at a half an hour already. What are you listening to? This is for all of us. Listening to, reading, watching, something that's moving you, bringing you joy, inspiring you, all that kind of stuff. What's going on in your eyes, ears, all that. Amy Kim, what's happening for you? What are you listening to, reading, watching?
Okay, so I've had a wonderful month of music. I got to see Joy Aladakun who was amazing in concert. And then I went and saw Pink and Brandi Carlile together in Nashville, which was like a joyous worship service of all of the lovely things. I did weep in the midst of that and then ended in dancing. It was fantastic. I have been telling Bruce, I don't know, Brian, if you've heard of Flamey Grant, but he has just relocated to Asheville area, and he is a drag queen music artist that's now on Christian radio, and it's freaking people out.
Does he cover Amy Grant songs?
He has songs that are very similar to your song as far as like his own journey. And I did what Bruce did to you and literally slipped into his DMs. And now I'm like super excited to know him as a person.
But was he in a movie early in his childhood that you have no idea about?
Probably. You can find out. But I love, again, just how queer artists have been able to express themselves and how people have been able to find them in a way that I think is just, I mean, for me, it's holy. It's just really wonderful to be seen and to be heard in music. The other super queer thing, but it's what I've been doing, is watching the last episode of Sex Education, which was, holy moly. If you have not watched that season, I'm not going to ruin it, but Bruce, get the whole tissue, do all the things to prepare yourself. But like, we have a mutual friend, Larissa, and after talking to me, she went home and binged the whole thing and was like, oh my gosh, you weren't wrong, blah, 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 blah. But I love how accessible that is, because that was clearly not accessible when I was younger. And I adore that for young people and for old people like me.
I remember when that came out, I started watching with my kids, and they're like totally fine with me watching. And the early seasons were pretty explicit. I mean, so I was like, I said, I'm cool. But I can't do this with you all. Like, I just, my high school kids, I was like, just have your place. I'll watch it on my own. So I have not picked it up since.
You need to.
I need to. Okay. I will do that.
Definitely.
Let's see what I'm listening to, watching. So I've been recording a bunch of things. So I'm trying not to repeat myself too much. Robin and I have, we just went and saw Hadestown. And with what?
With Betty Who as Persephone?
No, it's the national tour.
Oh, okay, got it.
Like we're in San Jose. So yeah, we saw the national tour. And it was one of those things I put on Facebook. I'm like, I'm going in. I have no idea. We're a big musical family. Like, we're way in. But I had not done any reading. I was just like, I knew the Broadway cast and went in. And we actually were like, But everybody has said, you're going to love it. It's going to be amazing. It's going to change your life. And it was Robin and I were both looking at each other saying, I'm like, So we're not sure if it was the cast or if it was the show. So I think it may have been the cast, unfortunately, but but it was an interesting thing, because usually I just love everything I see, because singing is not my thing. And so I'm always like, if somebody's going to get up there and be willing to do it. Yes. So it was good, but I don't know if I went in with too high expectations, but it was an interesting, just like, I'm thinking about like what I don't like, because we read some reviews. And some people are like, well, either you like it or you don't like it. And I'm like, I've never been on the I don't like it side of things. And so I was like, maybe I'm old. Maybe I just don't get it. Because there were tons of young folks there, I mean, who were super into it. So I think I might just be able to
about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now I feel cooler.
There you go.
Again, this podcast is here for Bruce and Bruce alone. Just tell us what you're listening to and watching. Yeah, you, Brian, not Bruce.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, first of all, that Pink Brandi Carlile concert sounds amazing, and I have yet to watch the third season of Sex Education, or is it the fourth season? But I will. Yes. I am currently watching too much. My partner and I have overcommitted ourselves to TV shows, but we are. I will just pick. I'm finally getting into The Last of Us, which everyone was so excited about. And I just finished the gay episode on Sunday. And it was probably one of the most brilliant hours of television I've ever watched. really impactful. Otherwise, I'm watching. I mean, Survivor just started last night. I'm a big Survivor stan. I'm watching the morning show. We've got a lot. I won't roll all of them because people will think I have no life. But what am I listening to? I'm listening to Kelsey Ballerini's new album on repeat that she's nominated for, which is the expansion of her EP. It's called Rolling Up the Welcome Mat. The whole thing is really brilliant from start to finish. It's just a breakup chronicling. All the songs just chronicle her breakup, but they're just stories, and they're really beautifully done, and they don't really follow the rules of country music in a traditional way, but they're still very country, and it's cool. What was the other thing? Watching, listening to, and reading. I'm reading. Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown.
Oh, that's good. For those of you,
I've been reading it for many months, so I'm not very tough.
It's a very big atlas.
Well, and I'm like, when people ask me what I'm reading, I'm like, I just consider listening to reading. So I listen to all audiobooks now. I have fallen in love with audiobooks and just that's my jam. So, all right, you all. Brian, thank you so much for saying yes and for everything you're putting into the world. Amy Kim, thank you for being here again. It's lovely to always have you on. So thank you all for listening. Do all the things. Oh, wait, I forgot to ask. I'm sorry, Brian, where do we find you? Where's all the places before we sign off?
Yeah, Instagram is the easiest place. Just my name, Brian Falduto. Or if you want, you can go to my website and actually click on it.
Okay. And then is there an email list we can sign up for?
That was a dig at you, Bruce. You missed it. Oh. There is an email list.
He even winked just so you could visually understand that there was something else going on, and that was amazing. Oh my gosh, Brian, we need to just
he's a fast one, that Bruce.
Anyway, good times.
But yeah, there's a newsletter you can sign up for on there.
Awesome. That's great. Everybody go and follow all that kind of stuff. You know what to do. And again, those of you that are listening to us, thank you so much for joining us on BRC and Friends. Go to all the places you subscribe, do all the things that everybody tells you to do with podcasts, link, rate, review. I don't know. What do you do? Again, thank you for joining us this week on BRC and Friends.
BRC and Friends was hosted and produced by Bruce Reyes-Chow. Co-hosts were Jorge Bautista, Mickey Scott Bay-Jones, Amy Kim Kremis-Parks, and Laura Monaco Heifetz, and the theme music was composed and recorded by Marissa Magdal-Laurent. Feel free to connect with any of us via the show notes. And lastly, please don't make me beg. Take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to BRC and Friends wherever you listen to podcasts. Until the next episode, thanks for listening to BRC and Friends.